Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Brando and Joe podcast. Today's guest is Dr. Rebecca Grossman. She is our professor at Hofstra University. She received her Ph.D. in IO psychology from the University of Central Florida, has had many years of experience teaching IO courses, and serves as the internship director at Hofstra University in the IO master's program. Welcome, Dr. Grossman.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. We're excited. For those who don't know, Dr. Grossman teaches what's the actual name of it? Just research design? Is there like a,
Correct.
oh, okay.
Research design.
Yeah, yeah. So we just finished that course up this previous semester. I think we learned a lot. We definitely
Oh,
retained some information.
I hope so. That's good to hear.
No, because I feel like I've personally had like research design courses in like my undergrad, but we definitely didn't go like as in depth. Like I think like the word quasi experiment just came up. I don't, Brandon, did you take any research courses for business or?
With my psych minor, I took a research methods class, and if I'm being honest, the only thing that we really did in that class was statistics. So everything was brand new for me. But I actually loved the lab aspect of that class, and we won't go into super depth in it, but we created our own selection tool, and I thought that was like one of the most fun parts of it, like really applying it and learning about it. And Joe and I got to work together on it too, which was fun.
Was Dr. Grossman, was that, I know we'll get into like the bulk of the episode later, but was that uh, end of the year project, was that like always a thing or is that recently new?
It's been going for many years. So it was developed even before I came to the program. But just to give some context, it's kind of a collaboration between the selection class and the research design class, where, as Brandon mentioned, you guys developed that selection tool. It's focused on developing a tool to select students to enter a master's program in IO psychology. And yeah, it's a great way to get the students to be able to apply the concepts they're learning from both of the classes as you're going through. So it's been going for many years. I know there's been, some tweaks along the way to kind of improve it as we go. And we've had discussions, we've been doing this for so long. Should we keep doing it? But it's such a good project, and we do get the good feedback from the students, and it gives you guys something to put on your resumes later on. So we've retained it with some improvements along the way.
Yeah, no, I feel like we learned a lot, and it was something that was really fun for us and sometimes challenging, but the challenges are something that we definitely can learn from because it was really like a full year or full semester long project that we got to get a lot of experience with. And honestly, the coolest thing about having you on the podcast is also like we're talking to you about our research methods class. And I feel like you are also one of the most accomplished researchers in our program as a professor. So it's really cool to kind of have you on here. Even though we're not talking about the research today, it's really cool that we can have you on here because of that as well.
Oh, thank you. I can't take that credit. We have all of our faculty are very active in research, but thank you. Yeah, I try to keep that going as much as I can.
So now I guess we kind of want to lead into the whole purpose of why we wanted to have you on to the show as the internship director for Hofstra in that master's program. It's been something that we've been getting the internship emails from you all semester long. What kind of was your leading drive to enter that role? And I guess to add to that question, what are some of the benefits that you've seen as the internship director for the students in the program?
Oh, yeah, good question. So I entered the role, because there was an opening, but I kind of seized that opportunity. I wasn't the only one who could take it on, but it was something I was interested in because I do very much appreciate the applied nature of our field, and I really value, you know, having those applied experiences, especially as you're moving through your education, as a chance to apply what you're learning. So I was interested in kind of, facilitating that for the students. And the cool thing about our internship sort of component of our program is that it comes with the course as well. And that part was also very appealing to me because, you guys will see next year. But that class is we are able to split up into small groups because we have 3 faculty involved in it. So, a part of the class is the whole cohort together, which you guys aren't, as a full group in that many instances as you go through the program. So that's part of it. And then we split up into the smaller groups, and that's very sort of discussion based. The students kind of bring to the table any issues they're experiencing, any questions they're having in their internships, and we kind of navigate those together. The students are able to learn from each other, what tools they're using, what are the issues they're navigating, give each other advice. So I really like that piece of it. And we work on other aspects of professional development. We do mock interviews. The students present on what they're doing in their internships. So I really enjoyed that part of the internship sort of curriculum. So that was appealing to me as well. And then what was the second part of the question again?
Just kind of looking at the impact that you've seen it have on the students already.
Oh yeah, it's huge. Just seeing the way the students change over the course of the program. So I don't have you guys in your very first semester, but I have you in your second semester. Um, After even just one semester in that second year, having gone through the first year of the program and then spending some time in an internship in that professional environment, getting those different experiences, I just see the students sort of morphing from these, you know, sort of nervous first years into becoming professionals in our field. You really mature in getting that experience. So I love that piece of seeing you guys really just becoming professionals in the field.
Is this something that you see only at Hofstra? I don't just know off the top of your head because I feel like when we talk with other students, whether it's at Metro or PsyOp, internships is definitely a part of their program, but I feel like Hofstra kind of like emphasizes it, and they're like it, having an internship is like a requirement. Whereas I feel like for other schools, I don't know if they're just more research based or if it's kind of just like you should get one because it would help, but like you don't need one.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. So I've only experienced it myself here, but in interviewing students for the master's program, over the years and talking to others at PsyOp and just in the field, I think that's right. That a lot of programs either don't have as much of applied angle because they're more focused on the master's thesis, or some of them do kind of recommend the internship, but they don't make it required, or I even hear of some who do have it required, but there's kind of no mechanism for helping the students get internships. So I think we are unique in the sense that we've got this great network, and we have a lot of sort of resources in place to help the students find the internships, and we do have that course that goes alongside it. So I think those are the unique features.
Yeah, I know for me personally, I picked Hofstra because of the internship alone. Like that was probably one of the most driving factors of why I picked the school because I was able to look at that and be like, okay, so this really gets me into the job market and I get to see that experience. And the cool thing that I saw too that you were talking about there to highlight that Dr. Grossman was talking about how people can talk through their roadblocks in that internship course. I know Joe and I just finished our first year. Joe's about to start in a summer internship, and I just started in my internship. And that course would already probably come in handy for me. And I'm sure it's going to come in handy for Joe once he starts in June. So, when talking about that stuff and looking at the roadblocks, could you kind of give our viewers an example of some of the ways that they've dealt with that and like how you guys have talked that through?
Yeah, so just thinking back on some of the things that have come up, some of it's like, I have multiple supervisors and they're all giving me tasks. How do I navigate, what's a priority, and, making my different supervisors aware of all the different tasks I'm doing. So kind of prioritizing all the different tasks and communicating with your supervisor. We've heard about navigating difficult coworkers or supervisors, having those challenging discussions, um, asking for a raise. Something that comes up a lot also is sometimes students don't know how to sort of create opportunities to apply the IO knowledge and skills, because a lot of times the sites that they're working with don't necessarily have a background on IO. It could be just an HR department and they might not really be familiar with everything that we can offer. So then it's talking through, okay, how can you sort of make a case for what you can offer? So it's sort of identifying what are the needs in that organization and then figuring out who are the stakeholders to talk to figure out how you can kind of expand your role there and create opportunities to apply what you're doing. So kind of job crafting. So yeah, basically in that class we meet every week and the students will kind of talk through what they're experiencing. So these things will come up and it's just an open discussion where we'll all contribute ideas about how they can handle that. Some students may have experienced that in their internships. The faculty advisor might have firsthand knowledge of or experience with it. So kind of talking through what potential solutions can be and then reporting back, and it's kind of an ongoing situation. And we're in the same group for the entire second year, so it's the same group for the fall and the spring. So we really kind of follow through, and that's the way we've been able to kind of deal with those roadblocks together.
It sounds like a cool opportunity for like students that have like similar internships, whether it's like maybe both in like an external consulting role or both like in a same type of like HR role, kind of like talk to each other about like their respective projects or as much as they can like talk about it. Um, do you see a lot of the students have similar internships, or does it kind of like depend on like a yearly basis? I don't know if there's like certain kind of titles that just come to mind.
Yeah, there is a lot of variance because there's so many different things we can do as IOs. But we do have some sites that that like to work with our students every year. So for example, every year we have typically a few students interning with Northwell Health in various capacities. So we have a few students working on sort of their org development team. Sometimes we have students in HR positions in different areas of Northwell also. We've had students doing sort of more research oriented positions to support training within the medical school. So those are ones we've seen over and over again. We also see a lot of students go into different market research type positions. So Lieberman is an organization that a lot of our students will intern with and get that market research experience. Rogers Consulting is where, again, year after year, our students will get experience engaging in consulting. So those are kind of some common ones. But then more broadly, in sort of a range of different types of organizations, a lot of students will be in different sort of HR capacities. So some kind of talent management, talent acquisition type position, HR analytics, or just sort of kind of a general HR intern. So it could be, vastly different organizations, but doing similar functions.
So, with that being said, too, so Dr. Grossman, you mentioned how many different areas that all these students could go into. For like our prospective students out there, what do you think that value comes in for the internship? Like, where do you think that they can find value in getting an internship, whether that's in grad school or maybe even for some during their bachelor's too?
Like, what are they getting out of the internship?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what are those main key things that they could learn from that?
Yeah, good question. So definitely, like we've been touching on, kind of that opportunity to apply what you're learning from your courses, because it's a deeper type of learning. A lot of things you can learn from the textbooks and even do the applied projects in class, but until you're in an organization having to problem solve and be the one responsible for, implementing some kind of practice, you're going to be learning it in a different way. So I think um, really it's going to promote the learning. It's going to give you that experience to build your resume so that you can speak to that, when you're on the job market, and then you're going to have that experience to draw from when you're actually in the job as well. And then of course it's helping to build your network. So you're in the professional world, you're getting those professional experiences, just navigating a workplace and the dynamics of that, getting people who know you and who can then recommend you later when you're on the market, and building that network and those connections and just kind of starting to build your professional reputation essentially. So I think those are kind of the big pieces.
Hofstra really has to pat themselves on the back. Those were like some big names too. Northwell, E. Rogers. It was covered in, I was like, oh, that's actually like awesome that we get like just like a chance or an opportunity to apply that maybe, without the program, I don't think they would even look at my resume.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. We have alumni at a lot of these great organizations, and then the students, go and intern and do a good job. So that continues the cycle that they want to continue working with our students. So yeah, it's a great system. We're fortunate.
Yeah, the alumni at Hofstra have been super helpful. Even at our like Houndstooth event, we got to meet a lot of people, and then whether it's, I know we brought up before like the Metro or PsyOp, but you bring up the word networking a lot, and just like talking to alumni, or just people in these jobs. Uh, would you say that's like a important skill to have? Because I feel like everyone that comes on our podcast or that we just talk to in general was like having like a good resume is definitely helpful and like you need it, but that networking aspect, just talking to people and get like obtaining their knowledge, or just seeing like what they actually do, is one of the most important things to do in like the field of IO or just in business in general.
Yes, I would absolutely agree. IO, even though it's growing, it's still a very small world. Especially if you're gonna stay here in the local area. People talk to each other, so part of it is your professional reputation. That's huge. So in networking, you're kind of building a presence in the field as part of it because you're getting to know people, you're attending events, going to different sessions, interacting on LinkedIn posts or whatever it is. So, people kind of just start to become familiar with you and who you are and see your name, appearing over and over again. So that's kind of part of it. And then yeah, just having those connections really can open up doors. And I'm sure you've heard this before, but your peers and your cohort, that is your primary network. That's going to be your first network when you graduate. Um, and I see it over and over again. You guys might know we just had the alumni career panel with the second year group where we have alumni come back, just to kind of talk about their career path so far, and I hear it every year. Different people they knew in the program helped them land their first job. Um, Somebody they met at PsyOp helped them land their first job. So it's really, of course, you can get things kind of applying on your own. You don't have to have a connection to get a job, but it can really um, give you that leg up. It might expose you to things that you might not even know are available. So yeah, it's huge. And then it's also not just about getting the job, but also a resource when you're in the job. And we were talking about roadblocks with the internship class, but you still want to have a resource once you're actually in the job, so you can reach out to your peers, your network. Hey, I'm experiencing this problem. Do you have any advice, or what kind of tool do you use for this type of data analysis? So just those, having that quick resource can to draw from is part of having that network as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great point about the networking, and I think that you can hear the value in it off of all those examples that you were giving. I want to circle back to something that you said a little earlier, when we were talking about like we are looking at the value that you can get, um, and something that I thought that stuck with me as somebody who did just start an internship was the discussion in the classes about applying the IO Psych to the job. And I guess I wanted to hear your input on that and like what you've heard when conducting the class, because I know for me personally, I've started to apply that knowledge that I've been learning just in the last few weeks. And it's really not only helped the information stick, but I feel like when I'm in a class and I'm hearing my classmates doing the same thing, it might not only help it stick, but I can see the uses and find maybe, okay, this might not be the field for me. Maybe something that my classmates doing might steer me in a better direction. Like, so that kind of like conversation that you're talking about in that internship class, do you
Mhm.
believe that that's really helped people with like the direction in their career and also like the learning of the material? You kind of talked about it, but I want to hear a little more in depth on it.
Yeah, I think so. For example, an instance of when that happened. We've had students who are maybe in some kind of HR internship and they find themselves not doing much more than like managing paperwork or database, and they really want to get more involved. And so they'll create this opportunity for themselves to maybe revamp their interview protocol or their whole selection system, or develop a new system that's really going to help the organization be more efficient. So whereas when it comes time to get their next job, that position could have just been very straightforward. I manage the database or whatnot. Now they have a lot more to speak to in terms of, I created this new system, I improved our interview protocol, whatever it is. So I think it gives you more, and that can certainly influence, the rest of your career trajectory if it's going to impact your first job. I don't know, is that in line with what you're asking about?
Yeah, definitely. And I guess that kind of leads into the second part of that, of like, it if you are in a path that you might not necessarily want to be in for your internship, the idea of like learning from your peers could help develop your career even further. I'm assuming, correct?
I think so, yeah. And I think I always emphasize that there's something to learn from any internship position, even if it is just, okay, I'm in a corporate environment, what are my social dynamics supposed to be like, or something like that, navigating, professional emails or whatever it is. So I think there's always something to learn. Um, and you can try to sort of craft the job as much as possible. Sometimes, it might be time to move on to the next thing if you've really reached your potential in a certain position. But yeah, and in another part of that class is we do, presentations. So you can learn from your peers through those conversations, but also students are presenting on, more formally on different professional issues, topics, different tools they're using. So yeah, I do think there's more learning opportunities that are relevant to the internship and the workplace that can be gained through that class and through the peers.
Brandon, I know we just finished, but now I'm kind of getting excited for our second year. It sounds like a fun class.
Oh, 100%.
But I know we're kind of running out of time, so I had another question that I kind of want to just like change gears. Um, when whether you're first year or even an undergrad, or whatever stage, and you're applying for an internship, I know we talked about um, networking and knowing people and talking to people about what they do. But I wanted to ask, were there any other like kind of skills that stick out, or that you wanted to like emphasize when going through that application process that you've seen are super important, or kind of just like things in the process that people do that you see make them more successful than others?
Sure. Yeah, a couple things come to mind. One is a lot of times students are kind of worried that they don't have enough experience for even, mostly jobs, but definitely internships too. So a skill to work on is really framing the experiences you do have from your classes, whether that be applied projects or even prior work experience that's not directly IO related. So you might have worked in a restaurant for 5 years and trained your team, or had a leadership position that you could speak to. And again, like we just talked about the selection project. So I think, yeah, even if you have no previous experience that's relevant to IO, it's about framing the experiences you do have, on your resume, and then being ready to talk about them in the interview process. So that's part of it. Another thing that comes to mind is really just maintaining that professionalism throughout the entire process. So from that very first application, any email communication, phone screening, that's all, part of the image that's being created of you. So you want to respond to emails. Don't treat any interview opportunities as sort of just like practice that you don't really care about. So, don't go for things that you aren't actually interested in, because there's other ways you can get that practice. So, in our program, we do mock interviews. We send you guys to the career center. But even for students not at Hofstra, that you can get that practice elsewhere. So don't sort of purposely, botch an interview to get the experience. So I think just kind of throughout that whole process, you want to be thinking about your professional reputation and building that right from the get-go.
The professional reputation is definitely important. I forgot where we heard it. I don't know if it was in class or who was telling us, but there was I think someone was on an interview and they were obviously like laying in bed with the TV on. And then I think like 10 minutes into the interview, they said like, is your TV on? Or like, is there something else happening in the room? And you just hear like, like the TV sound go off and they just like, no, what are you talking about? um, but it's like it is important because it's something that you're like, oh, of course I'm going to be professional, of course I'm going to like wear the right clothes and I don't know, say please and thank you, like be courteous, but I guess I don't know, maybe some people just kind of slips their mind. So it's like an easy thing to fix if you know how to be professional, but you just got to like remember it.
That's right, because you have to kind of always err on the side of you're better off being over professional, right? And it could get confusing if the organization might be very sort of casual and informal, but you don't, you're still being evaluated and developing your reputation. So you don't want to like be too laid back, even if others who are already in the position are being laid back. So, in that situation that you just described, the interviewer, might have had a lot going on in their background, or they might have been casual, but as the interviewee, you still, want to maintain that full professionalism.
And I think that's a great point to add on to that with especially the email writing, because I feel like you don't hear it that often, but a lot of companies do look at that when they're assessing you in the very beginning about how you like write or how you write an email and just writing that in like a professional and straight to the point way. So for like those prospective students out there who are looking at applying to internships or just trying to get out there, definitely take this advice and run with it, because that could be something that could be important and help you and distinguish you from another person who's applying to the job as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it looks like we're kind of closing out with time here. So we have our usual like wrap up question. I know we kind of briefly talked about kind of tips and tricks for people applying to internships, but we wanted to know if you just had any general advice for prospective IO students, whether they're coming into grad school, leaving grad school, PhD, or any of the above.
Yeah, I think this is probably one that you hear a lot, but definitely get involved in PsyOp. There's so much available on the website. So just kind of familiarize yourself with what the field is, because IO is so broad. You can do so many different things with it. Um, so kind of exposing yourself to the different career paths, the different type of research that's being done, the different jobs that people have, in the field. So PsyOp is a good resource for that. Even just looking through LinkedIn for people who have graduated from IO programs and seeing what types of jobs they have, because it's so varied. It's not, we have all different types of job titles. You can't really search like IO psychology and see everybody in the field. You kind of have to dig through a little bit more. So just getting exposure to really what the field is and what you can do in it, I think is a good starting point. And then, of course, PsyOp has, the annual event and other resources and events that they do throughout the year. So that's a chance to sort of start doing that networking we've been talking about. Um, and if you're thinking about joining our graduate program, you can reach out to people in those programs, whether it be faculty or current students, alumni. Most people in our field are very open and friendly and happy to talk about what they do. It's well known that nobody outside of our field knows what the heck IO is, right? So we're all happy to kind of talk and help share the word of what it is for people who are interested in it. So I think, yeah, kind of once it crosses someone's path, suddenly they're interested in it. So those of us who are here are happy to talk about it. So reach out would be my advice.
Yeah, that last part is definitely, I would say, one of the most important about reaching out. I know one of the main reasons I came to Hofstra was that we had a family friend that went through the program. I don't know how long, maybe like 20 or 30 years ago. And she raved about the program, and then she had a internship in comp, and then that's why I started getting interested in that. And it only happened because I reached out. And like you can read all you want about like the program website, but like those personal experiences are super helpful and important and kind of give you like that insider look that you can't really get anywhere else.
Oh, that's great. We'll have to thank her for steering you toward the program.
Yeah, absolutely. She's so nice and helpful.
Yeah, no, it definitely reaching out is important. I know that just Joe and I have kind of learned that through this process of talking to people on here. Like we would joke sometimes and be like, we've learned more in this episode than we learned in some of our classes. We were like, this really has been super beneficial. So people are going to listen, or you'll be able to listen to people and talk to them and really get some information from them if you reach out and make that initiative.
Yeah, your podcast list of speakers so far is a great example of that.
Well, hopefully they're listening. But thank you, Dr. Grossman, for joining us today. I think a lot of students, especially, will take great value in this episode just about getting internships and like what they can expect.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. It was fun.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
All right, take care, guys, and have a nice little break this summer.
I'll try.
Yeah, we'll try.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye.
So that was definitely a cool episode. I'm hoping that the viewers who watch it and the students get like a lot of value about the internship process. Because I know we touched about it briefly, but Hofstra definitely emphasizes that applied aspect, which is I know why both of us applied to this school. And it was kind of cool getting to know, like, learn about how it actually happens and like the behind the scenes look.
Yeah, 100%. And I think there was something we touched on there that was really important. Looking at the career resources on SciOp, as somebody who came from business school, I didn't really know much about what IO psychology was. And like that website became my best friend. Yes, it was like a little tough to read sometimes because they need an update, but it had all of the information on it that you could ask for. So using that website is definitely something that Dr. Grossman recommended. And I also endorse that recommendation as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you guys have any more questions, don't hesitate to reach out to Brandon or I about just best things to do when applying to internships. And hopefully we can give our knowledge might not be extensive, but we definitely have some things to share. So definitely don't hesitate.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we are good people and resources to talk to because we're going through this in real time. So we'd be happy to help you guys out with anything. Please reach out to us on LinkedIn or anything along those lines. We'd be happy to help.
Yeah, absolutely. But thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Take care, you guys.